So, my friends, what do you want to be when you grow up? Most of us heard that question at some point during our childhood, from a grandparent, a parent, a teacher, or a neighbor. For those of us who are still waiting to feel like we are grown up, we might ask that question of ourselves today. What do you want to be when you grow up? Now, the most acceptable answers when I was young were a firefighter, or a nurse, a baseball player, or a flight attendant. I think that if I had said when I was a kid, when I was asked that question, if I'd answered it by saying, well, when I grow up, I want to be a person who is comfortable in my own skin and is caring and compassionate to others, I think I might have gotten some strange looks from teachers and parents and grandparents. What do you want to be when you grow up? While the words say want to be, they usually really mean what do you want to do? When posing that question to a daughter or a grandson or a child that we mentor, we are usually actually asking, what job, what career will you seek when you have to leave the carefree years of childhood and enter the working world? The universality of this question, what do you want to be when you grow up, and its implicit connection to our occupational identities, says a lot about who we are as a society. Tomorrow is Labor Day, a holiday here in the United States which marks the end of the summer season. Observance of Labor Day traces its roots back to the 1800s, to the days of the Industrial Revolution, a time when labor unions were establishing themselves as a powerful force in American life. This was an era of unprecedented change in American life, and change brings about anxiety and unrest. This was especially true for the millions of people who had left the countryside to come to the city to find work in factories. Harsh working conditions were everywhere, and there was growing discontent among the masses. Historians tell us that the U.S. Congress and President Grover Cleveland created the Labor Day holiday in 1894 as a way of relieving mounting civil unrest, pacifying unions and workers by giving them a national holiday in their honor. The placement of our American Labor Day in early September was also an attempt to discourage the observance of International Workers' Day in May, a holiday tied to socialism in many other parts of the world. Now, I think it's interesting that for the most part, we really do not celebrate Labor Day as a workers' holiday anymore. It has become just another 3-day weekend for so many, a day on the calendar for picnics and travels and parties. Yet lots and lots and lots of people will be working tomorrow, staffing all those Labor Day sales at the mall, working in kitchens and convenience stores, and many working from home online as well. It is odd to me that we do not observe a workers' day anymore, because we Americans value work very highly. We attach so much of our self-image and our social status to the work that we do, perhaps more than any other modern society. Today, studies show that in this country we work harder than people in most industrialized countries, putting in longer hours, taking fewer vacations. The 40-hour work week is a memory for many people. And for most folks, our health care, our retirement funds, our financial well-being are all linked directly to our jobs. As a society, we abhor laziness and idleness. The very first question that we ask when meeting new people is what? What do you do for a living, right? For most Americans, the demands of job and career take away precious hours from family, from church, from other social commitments. And of course, today, with all of our electronic gadgets, we find ourselves still working, even when we're not at work at all. This makes finding that balance between work and personal time an ongoing struggle. The strong work ethic that defines us as a people goes back to the very beginnings of our nation, to those early settlers in New England called the Puritans. Today we think of these hardy folk as strict moralists and even stricter religionists, right? The opposite of us, the opposite of this church's free-thinking identity. But we should remember that Unitarian Universalism has strong historic ties to the Puritans. The early Unitarian congregations of Massachusetts emerged directly out of Puritan and Congregationalist churches. It is from this history that we get our system of church governance. It is from the Puritans that we also inherited the belief that hard work purifies the soul, that hard work gives us meaning, that hard work is a sign of our goodness. Carl Jung, the founder of analytical psychology, observed, "You are what you do, not what you say you will do." And we spend a lot of time doing. And the work that we do and that others do defines how we think about ourselves, how we think about our relationships. Now, the work of my life these days is ministry. And serving a Unitarian Universalist congregation is a calling that I take seriously and I am so grateful to be blessed with. But for most of my adult life, I had a different job. I was the cookie man. When I graduated from the University of Cincinnati in 1991, there were very few professional jobs in graphic design because there was a recession. And many cutbacks in hiring were happening everywhere. I call that the first Bush recession, by the way, because there were two of them. Well, so I took a temporary job, at least what I thought was going to be a temporary job, working in a small retail bakery. That part-time, short-term position turned into 15 years in bakery management. I woke up early every morning, kind of like that man in the Dunkin' Donuts commercial. You know, he would always say, "It's time to make the donuts." For me, it was time to make the cookies. And I would come home many an afternoon, covered in flour and in sugar and exhausted from a very long day. At the time, I thought of this as just a job, a way to pay the bills, an unfortunate inconvenience that took time away from the rest of my life, the life that I really wanted to be living. But I look back on those days and I think about them differently now. Today, I think of those 15 years as not just a job, but a part of my ministry. They were my ministry of sugar. People called me the cookie man, and I delivered, providing sweet treats to busy office workers in downtown Cincinnati, people who were at work just like I was, perhaps thinking at times how inconvenient their jobs were to the rest of the lives that they wanted to be leading. I will never forget the days and the weeks following the terrorist attacks of September 11th, 2001. Sales at the bakery skyrocketed. Chocolate chips and cinnamon rolls were a soothing balm for the shattered nerves and fearful feelings of those uncertain times. At the time, I did not think of all this as ministry of any kind. I didn't really think of it as service, other than, just regular old customer service, but thank you, here's your change, have a good day. But now I look back on it, and I wonder how I might have found deeper meaning in all of that work if I'd been able to see it more as a part of my spiritual life. Some of us have the resources, the privilege, and the education to be able to choose our career and to engage in work that we love to do. Some of that is just luck, too. Many others of us have far less choice and control over our jobs. Employment is about survival. Some here at All Peoples are retired, and the work of their lives involves hobbies and volunteer projects and taking care of family members. Whatever we may be doing, I think we can find meaning and spirituality in that work. Perhaps we can feed our spirits in our work by not just focusing on what we're doing, but looking more carefully at how we're going about doing it. In one of her marvelous reflections on life, author Marianne Williamson observes this: our power does not lie in our resume or in our connections. Our power does not lie in what we have done or even in what we are doing. Our power lies in our clarity about why we are here on earth. Knowing who you are and why you came here. Knowing that you are a child of God and that you came here to heal others is more important than knowing what you want to do. We must ask ourselves, when I do something, how should I do it? How should I do it? I hear her saying, how we think about our work, whatever that work is, matters. The question is not, are you a garbage collector or are you an astronaut? The question is, what kind of garbage collector are you? What kind of astronaut are you? Does hauling trash to the dump feel like a valuable service to others? Does seeing the stars from space transform your heart? Or is it just a job? How does your labor make the world a better, more complete place? How does it help? How does it serve others? A good friend of mine is a lawyer. And lawyers frequently get a pretty bad rap in our society. Think of all those lawyer jokes that you have heard, right? Attorneys are frequently portrayed as greedy liars, profiteers from the misfortunes of others. There is no shortage of TV shows and movies, and of course, actual real-life stories, too, about ambulance-chasing lawyers consumed with personal ambition and up to no good. But lawyers can also be heroes. Think about Atticus Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird, risking his livelihood and his personal safety to defend an innocent man against the racist fervor in Harper Lee's fictional town of Macomb, Alabama. Back in 2015, my lawyer friend was one of the attorneys involved in the landmark Supreme Court case, Oberfell versus Hodges, which resulted in legal recognition of my marriage and many other marriages. And today, it is legal professionals, lawyers and judges who are representing immigrants being unjustly detained, working to defend our democracy against attacks by our would-be dictator-in-chief and those who support him. Whether we are lawyers, Whether we are making cookies for a living, or teaching kindergarten, buying, selling stocks, or maybe even preaching sermons, finding meaning in that work and discovering how we are of use to the world makes all the difference. Having love for our work is one path. Lebanese poet and philosopher Kahlil Gibran says, "When you work with love, you bind yourself to yourself and to one another and to God." What is it to work with love? Well, Gibran says, it is to weave the cloth with threads drawn from your heart. It is to build a house with affection. It is to sow seeds with tenderness and reap the harvest with joy. It is to change all things you fashion with the breath of your own spirit. He says work is love made visible. Asking, how do I do what I do, can make our job into a source of clarity, goodness, and transformation for ourselves and for the whole world. Work is love made visible. So, what do you want to be when you grow up? Perhaps answering, I want to know myself and be kind and compassionate to others. Maybe that's a pretty good career path after all, no matter where you punch a time clock or get your paycheck from. Asking, how is my job, how is the work I do, love made visible? And finding an answer. That's transformative. When this long 3-day weekend is over, or maybe when this worship service is over, it will be time for many of us to get back to work, whatever that work may be. May our values, may our hopes, may our commitments to respecting the worth of every person, may our reverence for nature and the interdependence of all life, may our calling to be thoughtful and caring people, may all of this guide us. Guide us in all of the ways that we do what we do, whatever work that may be. Happy Labor Day, my friends, and let's get to work. Amen.